But let me start with a challenge. Do you know the name of the person sitting next to you? Good. Let's start with that. Please exchange numbers first. You never can tell. That person can become National Assembly member tomorrow. You now be saying, and he was sitting next to me. Oh. You didn't even take photo. Please take number now. All right. Good afternoon, sirs, and to every one of us joining online. Well, you know, the conversation is actually quite easy. Navigating admissions process. Let me start with Professor Lidiya, but please, in no particular order. One of the questions a number of people, by the way, I hope to make this as interactive as possible. You know, one of the questions anybody will want to ask is, and I know a number of questions have also been asked. Well, Prof, let me begin by asking you this one. How significant is getting an admission? Here is why I'm asking the question. Because some people might think the moment you have the admission, you're already in school. Is that correct?
Thank you. Well, let me start from the background. Here in Nigeria today, we have the challenge of the limited number that the universities, colleges of education, polytechnics can carry, the carrying capacity of various institutions. Last year, 1.6 million candidates applied for admission into Nigerian tertiary institutions, out of which only 500 of them were admitted. Wow. And so there is a keen competition for admission. That was last year alone, and that's how we have it every year.
I'm sorry, please, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. How many people did you say applied?
1.6 million.
1.6 million people applied.
Yes.
They got the admission.
No. Applied.
They applied.
Then only 500,000 were admitted into tertiaries, not only universities, colleges of education, polytechnics, universities, private, public, state, and all that.
Is it as a result of the limitations that you talk about?
Oh, yes. We have series of challenges.
Okay.
And so, because of the challenge of limited capacity, there is keen competition. And based on that, everyone that is interested in gaining admission into tertiary institutions will struggle as much as possible to do all it can to gain access. So we say we have challenge of access and challenge of quality. Based on these major problems in Nigeria, the government has also given opportunities to private organizations, individuals, religious bodies, and all that to open access to education. And so, because individuals are interested and there are access, we have opportunities of going outside Nigeria, within Nigeria, outside, in Africa, in Europe, we have a number of opportunities. But before you go, before you think about what to do, where to go, you need to have the academic excellence, which is basic. Academic excellence, then you have to know you have to get the knowledge of where you are going, details of the universities.
We'll come to those other details. The reason I asked that question, the reason I asked that question is because, just as you said, 1.6 million people, yes, and only 500,000 got admission. The question ringing in my head is why? Is it because they didn't follow certain processes in the admission process, or there was something missing?
No. I talked about the carrying capacity of the universities, the polytechnics, colleges of education, universities. The carrying capacity of these institutions cannot take more than this. And we have a number of candidates that are qualified.
Okay. So it now also raises the question again, whether or not those 500,000 pass school. Please don't answer that one yet. Let me let me talk to Miss Ivanova joining us from, joining us virtually. What are some of those things that you would say are important, the most important criteria in the admission process, particularly for international students? Miss Ivanova, that's for you.
of the meetup today, even virtually as well. In terms of the admissions process, actually there's a variety of things that the applicants need to be aware of. Initially, of course, they need to meet the academic criteria, which is number one thing. In addition to that, they need to provide supporting documents in terms of like personal statements, essays, explain why they actually need to and actually why they're interested in the course that they want to study. So a little bit of background about themselves. They also need to provide a CV as well. And then, they also need to meet the other criteria as well, especially for applying for a visa to come to study to the UK. They need to meet the financial evidence criteria. And then they are most likely also to have an interview with the admissions team, which they need to prepare in advance for. And submit and apply for the visa application process. So this is like a quick overview of the whole admissions process, I would say. But this is not far the ultimate package. So yeah, that's a quick kind of overview.
Well, excuse me, you may, that's understandable, but you want to quickly speak to some of the common challenges that international students usually have, that doesn't help them to, that troubles them in the process, either at the initial stage or in the middle of the entire process. What are some of the common challenges that they need to be aware of ahead of time? Ms. Ivanova, that's for you as well. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. I don't think she could hear me, but Mr. Tarkan, can I ask you that same question, Mr. Ulas? What are some of the common challenges that that international students usually have to contend with when in the admission process?
Hi everyone, greetings from Istanbul. It's nice to be part of it, first of all. Okay, as in addition to Lidiya's comments, she pretty much to cover. And I think for international students for the Turkish universities, the main big criteria is that they're also high school grade, which is also important kind of tool. And unless if you want to be like one of the top universities, we call it, like A-level you can call, but in that case, it's also that there are A-levels, and such as, the IB, the programs also can help them to get admitted. And another point is for sure the academic, the achievements, such as like the competitions, like if they have any academic projects, which can help as well. But the main criteria for Nigerian students for Turkish universities is that they are high school grade. They should have a really high grade in order to get admitted in Turkish universities. And another challenge, as Lidiya mentioned, in addition to the admission criteria, is visa. It's one of the we can call it barrier, unfortunately, for in our industry. And I think this is another plus we can call for the Turkey. Is at the moment we have over 3,700 Nigerian students currently studying in Turkey based on last year's statistics. For sure, this is a not big number compared to like as you mentioned, almost 900,000 other options in Nigeria. But I think the Turkey is a new option for the Nigerian students. But we become, I think, a player in the international industry as well. Because now there are 320,000 international students studying currently in Turkey. And now Turkey become the 10th biggest market in the world. And I think that's all for me.
Okay.
If you have further questions, I will be happy to respond.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you very much, Mr. Ulas. Could you please give him a round of applause? Thank you. I'd like to ask media guys kindly doctor the audio of our participants online. We can do better with the audio. But let me check. Is there, Mr. Adekola, or is there anyone on this panel who has had an experience of international, as an international student? Mr. Obe. Okay, you want to share your experience?
I think most of these universities, they have different criteria.
Yeah.
And the feedback I've gotten is that the quality of the application coming from us can be very, very poor. I have a friend
Quality
of
of
mine,
application.
quality of application.
What do you mean by that?
So in terms of how you write your personal profile, your references, the quality of the references. So I have a friend who sits down on the board of a university in the UK. And anytime we get on the phone call, she was like, look, we get over it 100 scholarships and 70% of them go to China. So in terms of the references, you see a Chinese lecturer writing about 10 pages as a reference for a student. You see one page reference coming from a potential student from Nigeria. So they see that as a very, very big problem. In terms of profile, your personality statement, your profile. In the UK, there are a lot of in the UK, there are a lot of life skills that they learn, like the Duke of Edinburgh Award, where they teach them a lot around life skills. We don't have that in Nigeria. So I think the quality of the applicants is extremely very important. There are certain things they are looking for. You know, it might even be solve local social problems. When you demonstrate that leadership skills, it puts you at a very serious edge above a lot of people. So the quality of your application for personal statement to the references, then to, let's say, those who do English language certification, the scores, or we are going to like Ivy League university like Harvard, Stanford, or anything, then the score in your GMAT. Those are the criteria that actually put you at the forefront.
Well, how recent are these? I ask that because perhaps I can say that when you were studying and now, maybe like some 10, 20 years ago now, and the young people of today are way far different from the young people, back in your own time and all of that. So how relevant are some of those experiences to now?
So, I mean, obviously, I studied 20 years ago, but the discussion I had with my friend who sits on the board was just very, very recent. It was like 2 years ago. And the conversation then was that, okay, is there anything we can do to address this problem? And she was even willing to do it for free. Okay, is there a conference I can come to as a student? Because, hey, I'm actually part of the assessor. So it's a very simple problem.
Okay. I guess you are telling the organizers to open a different business line right now.
Maybe.
Mr. Adekola?
Yes.
Yes, you have some experiences in that regard as well.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Excellent. Okay, so I studied at the University of Sussex recently. So just to share a bit of my experience, and excuse me. And the experience I'm going to share might also be relevant if you're applying for scholarships as well. And that is because I had gotten the Chevening scholarship that many people find very, very stressful. And I currently sit on the interview for Chevening in Nigeria as well. So you might take a bit of learning from this. I would say that it's a very double-sided kind of perspective, because there are some times that you look at some applications and you realize that people don't have sufficient skills or skill set or content. Sometimes you see that, but there's a lot of training in terms of writing, how to write your personal statement and all of that. To be honest, they're actually existing. You see a lot of trainings happening. So people are getting better when it comes to writing. The problem is that if you don't have substance, then it also still loses its value. If you're in a university and you've never participated in drama or dance or community work, and it's just from church to school to home, there is a problem. Let's face the facts. You need to get involved because those are the contents that you're going to put in the personal statement. If you know how to write all the good grammars and big English and there is no students, you only speak Yoruba and English and Pidgin, and somebody is writing even something that is not as well written as yours, and they are coming from Morocco and they have like 5 languages that they speak. See, relevance and substance is very, very important. So I think this is some of the things that I would say in terms of, what my experience is. And I would also say, of course, for us at the University of Sussex, where I currently work, we get a lot of people who are, well deserving of spaces, you understand? My own is just that it's very important to get involved. And the best time to start getting involved is when you're in university. Like we say, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is right now. So if you haven't learned any of these things, you haven't gotten involved, there are organizations to volunteer.
Okay.
Because, I'll stop.
All right, thank you. Well, Prof, you want to quickly add a word?
Yes, thank you very
Mr.
much.
McDonald, I'm coming to you shortly, so please stand by.
Thank you very much. We talked about poor quality of application. This is, in fact, the reason for writing exams to universities, even in Nigeria. Now, we can realize now that a number of universities will set exams after the JAMB exam, do the screening. That was why JAMB also said, after writing the first stage of the exam, universities can also screen. The vice chancellors agreed that majority of the candidates who even passed the JAMB exam could not even write. So why can't we screen them to pick from those who even passed the JAMB exam? That is not to say that all candidates are bad, no. But we have good number of applicants that are very good and they can compete anywhere in the world, but they do not have access because of the limited spaces. And so there is the need for us to emphasize quality of writing when we are applying. Quality of writing.
Perhaps the challenge there is not because of what to write or not, perhaps even because a challenge of understanding. Because previous sessions I've talked about the purpose of going to all of these things. I understand that there's a purpose of statement that you also need to write.
That's part of writing.
Exactly. Do they even understand their purpose?
That is the issue.
Another conversation altogether.
Style of writing, logicality, Prof. Different presentation styles and all that.
You have to understand Twitter language. Well, let me ask you, Mr. McDonald. One of the things that we find very interesting here is this particular conversation. But many times when students are writing these tests, putting all these documents together, they probably don't even understand, what you're looking for. For their lecturers, they know, okay, this is the question that's been asked, and this is the answer that I'm going to get. But in most cases, when it comes to admissions, there's no examination. I mean, you just have to put some documents together and send them in. What are those things that the committees, the review committees look out for? I'm looking for that particular statement here. I really love the way it sounded. What are the things that the committees look out for, the admission committees? What are the things that they are looking out for the students to pay attention to?
I'd be happy to answer that question from the context of Canadian university admissions. I recently worked at the University of Toronto for a few years, specifically in the business school, so MBAs and finance. And I reviewed many applications. I sat on admissions committees as well. The number one thing is truly looking for the student success. I think from the applicant's perspective, it can be scary, wondering what do the admissions committee look for, what do I need to show? And first and foremost, our goal in reviewing an application was to make sure that the applicant, if admitted, would succeed in the program. Because in very demanding programs at competitive universities, the academic programs are very challenging. So, for example, if in a finance program, we would want to look at the quantitative subjects to make sure that the student truly had the quantitative skills in order to do graduate level work in finance, for example. Or in an MBA program where it's more broad business, administration, education, and there wasn't the same quantitative requirement, but there still is a need to find applicants who are eager to learn and are curious about different subjects within the sphere of business, about learning about new trends in business, especially if they're going to be doing that in a new country, in a new cultural context. So another thing that we look for in applications is a genuine interest in learning. And that, I think, as some of the other panelists have mentioned, it comes through in previous volunteer experiences. If you just went to school, church, and did nothing else, that really suggests that you're not very curious about your community, about your world. And so then that comes through in the admissions statement when you don't have much to write about. So I want to echo again that it's really, if you view the admissions statement, the personal statement, as an opportunity to show who you are, and if you have a genuine interest in a subject, a genuine curiosity, I find that comes through quite often, because I think the weaker statements of interest that we see, or the weaker admissions essays, whatever you call them, come from people who haven't really figured out why they're applying for a certain subject. That they're maybe studying, again, I would see people who study finance because it seems their parents wanted them to study finance, and then we couldn't really see from the applicant, what it was about the subject that got them excited. So I think that's where I could say, really, it really is an opportunity to show yourself, and I think you should have the courage to show your true self, because on the admissions committee, what we often remember are those small details that actually have nothing to do with academics. For example, the admissions committee might remember one of the many applicants as the person with a really interesting story about volunteering to help kids with soccer after school, for example. It's some of those small details that are non-academic that help you bring a person to life, because I think maybe the final point I'll mention in admissions processes where it is competitive, university programs have a dream of building a class. It's maybe doesn't really happen in the way that we talk about it, but we have a dream of bringing together a community of learners and seeing people who are genuinely interested in learning, people who have different interests, and who will be people who you'll enjoy studying and working with in the future, I think is another thing that you want to show. You're not just an academic, you're a real person, you're going to be in a classroom with other people, and the admissions committee also wants to think, is this person going to be a jerk in class, or is this person going to contribute to the learning of other students in the class? So I think if I can echo something here, it's truly the personal statement is a great opportunity to show who you truly are. You don't want to miss that opportunity, and you don't want to fake being someone else to be in a program where you may not actually thrive.
Sounds like you're asking the students to market themselves, and essentially that's what it is, right? But let me say this right away. If you are, a student or an aspiring student here, and you have questions, please write them down. I will come to you, or we'll bring a microphone to you to ask. We have about 10 minutes more for this particular session. For Mr. Obe, I have seen this as a problem, generally. Communication. It will seem like sometimes the students just want to get into an international school just for the kick of it, not particularly for the understanding of what it really takes. How do we communicate that essential thing to them that, look, whatever you put out, you are marketing yourself. You are presenting yourself to the world. And so you don't become a victim of Jakwada.
Thank you very much. I think it's very important for you to know how to navigate around the places you're going to in terms of different cultural barriers. There are certain things you need to know before going abroad. The cultures are different. The work ethics are different. I mean, I can remember when I first moved back to Nigeria, I struggled with the work ethics here in Nigeria. And I used to fire people like no. I used to work for a company that
Should I be offended?
I used to work for a company that an oil and gas company that was very easy for you to fire people. You know, I mean, so. But I started thinking about it. That, look, you work in all these countries. Come on, it's time for you to come back. I think you need to share your knowledge and educate these people. So what we started doing, we started training them. Okay, this is what is expected of you when you work in other countries. It's quite interesting. I actually wrote a book as well too. And I wrote a book and it's on guidelines to living overseas. That book is actually to educate people on the do's and don'ts, what is expected of you when you go abroad. It talks about the culture, it talks about the work ethics, and it references different countries from the UK to USA to Nigeria. So we picked a country with similar culture and values across different continents. So we just launched the version 1. We're hoping that will probably help the people relocating abroad. It can actually help shape areas of their blind spots.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have a question? Show of hand. Okay. All right, please come forward. Can we give him a microphone, please? Please come forward. Let's not waste time if you don't have a microphone. All right, thank you. You have 30 seconds to ask your question. Introduce yourself in about 5, and then we can move on. Your name, where are you calling from?
Thank you very much. I'm Mr. Adekola by the name.
Yeah.
I want to appreciate the organizer of this program. It's very, very good for students seeking.
20 seconds more.
20 seconds more. Now, my fourth question is, can you explain to us some of the impact that students have to gain in relationship with the Nigerian institution and the foreign institution?
Who are you directing your question to?
First question is directly to the first panelists. They have gone.
Oh,
They
okay.
are not here.
Okay.
So I want them to answer that particular.
So what's the question again?
My question is, what is the advantages of students' impact in relationship with the Nigeria institution here in partnership with the foreign institution?
Are you talking about exchange?
Exchange,
Okay.
Okay.
yes.
All right.
So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay. Is that something you want to take on? Prof?
I can.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Akiola.
I can, and we're in different arts. So I used to work in the advancement office of a state university in Nigeria. So I know partnership and fundraising. The first importance, the conversation was very robust earlier, when they were talking about how exchange provides you with a platform to learn, build your capacity, but also learning culture and exchanging cultures. Because like there's a Yoruba adage, and respect to the elders in the house, ẹni tí ò bá dóko ẹlòmíì ló máa ní oko bàbá tòun ló tóbi jù, something like that. And the reason why I said that, and for the sake of those who probably doesn't understand Yoruba, means that if you haven't been to another person's farm, you would always assume that your father's farm is the biggest, or something like that. So when you actually exchange, when we send students abroad or we bring students here, we try to show how issues that we often look at as in a general perspective differ by cultural contexts. And apart from that, it helps you to also have a better understanding of how you can solve local problems using a global perspective, all right? And also exporting your ideologies. Because I think for me, so I am very keen on decolonization. So I understand the importance of how we can use our cultural ideologies to solve some of the global problems. An example is climate change. And when we talk about globalization, everybody, like all of us, most people want to be like the West, like many countries in the West. But if you look at it very well, you realize that some of the solutions that are being created to some of the global problems are things that we were originally doing in Africa. Things like not driving cars all the time, not doing, these are things, even gender. Even gender-related matters. You see places like in the East where women, go to work, they have their liberty, but it's really understanding how can we cross-fertilize ideas, how can we lean on each other's shoulders to create even solutions to some of the problems that we have in the society, both economically and socially.
All right, Mr. Ulas, one of the issues for conversation in the area of navigating the admissions process is that of immigration policies. How does a change in immigration policies affect the process for international students? Mr. Tarkan Ulas, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Mr. Ulas? Okay, I think we don't have him right here. You want to also speak to that? You are the only international.
I can speak briefly, and if anybody wants to
Okay.
add to that. There are lots of changes in policy at the moment, and we just need to be aware of that. How education, international education recruitment, for those of us who have been in the industry for a long time, we understand how cyclical it is. 1 year there is post-study work, the next year there isn't. 1 year there is dependent visa, the other there isn't. One time last year, by this early last year, exchange rate was probably around 600. Now, if you're checking, is over like 2,000. I'm talking UK because my university is located in the UK. There's a whole lot of policy changes that actually affect your decision of what university to go to, what kind of scholarships you're going to be applying for, what kind of things that even decides the kind of university that you want to go to. Because, last year you can be looking at, oh, I'm looking for university that has, I don't care how much it costs, but if it has low initial deposit. But those who paid the initial deposit, £2,000, and are having to deal with it now that the exchange rate has changed, have a lot of burden on their neck. So policies are very important. And if you're applying to university or you're a counselor supporting student, it's very important to be aware of how these policies change and how they differ from one country to another.
Prof, I want to quickly speak to that as well.
Thank you very much. Just like Luis has said, policy is key in the applications. So I will advise all prospective students to search well, compare policies from one country to another. Why do we have a number of Nigerians in South Africa? Why do we have a number of Nigerians in Ghana? Why do we have a number of Nigerians in Malaysia, in Europe, in America, and Canada? They have studied the changes in their immigration policies. Every year, they change visa policies. And so, if you rely on what you read last year, you may not be selected. If you rely on what you read 3 years ago, while you are applying this year, you may not be selected. And so you will say, oh, I read this on the internet. Did you find out? Did you compare? Did you ask those who were there, if possible? Did you ask those that are agents, those who are familiar with the policies?
Yeah.
These are the things that the applicants should do.
And pay attention to.
And pay attention to. Key issues in policies. Visas, the applications, university requirements, even their own quality, preparations, and all that. The documents they are submitting. What were they asked to do?
Okay, all right. And that also depends on countries, Mr. Obi, right?
Yes. I think policies more are driven by data and gaps. Like in the UK right now, there's aging workforce in the UK. There's a lot going around. The digital access program the UK is doing in Africa, whereby they're trying to, I think they're pumping in, over $200 million, yeah?
Wow.
So there'll be more requirement for technical skills in the future. So they monitor all this data, even though the NHS, they monitor all this data and they look at how this data actually impacts on the economy, and based on that,
On their economy.
on their economy, and based on this, they make certain policies. So it's extremely very important. What is the trend going to, and what is going to happen in the next? You can predict what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years, and based on that information, it can actually help you to determine the right program or know where the policy direction is going into.
Okay. Well, I'd like to take your. Can you please give all a round of applause? Okay. You have a question? A comment? Okay, give me just 1 minute, 1 second or two. I know that our online participants are still there, but I can't see them on the screen, and I'm not sure that they can hear me. Mr. Ulas, I wanted to take your comment on that last question. I don't know if you can hear me right now. If you can hear me, can you confirm? No, he cannot hear me. Okay. Just one comment, and then we take the last words of our participants. Please, what's your name and where are you calling from? And you have 30 seconds.
I know it can't be enough, actually. Okay, my name is Emmanuel George. I'm the country manager, AECC Nigeria. AECC is a global brand. Be that as it may, I've been doing this for more than 14 years. I've been privileged to work with international organizations and also international schools, Niagara College in Canada, and few others. On this very particular topic, this is actually a classroom topic where we need to slice and dice. Over the years, I've seen lots of applications and what has resulted into rejected applications. But this platform will do us good if we are able to inform people, at least. I'm so sure that not 100% of the applicants or potential applicants are here, but each one will tell one. Number one, which of what I discovered is students are not detailed enough. Like I said, I've privileged to work with schools, and I'm still working with schools, international schools, top schools, and students who are given the opportunity to apply. Some of them, they do a kind of a misplaced priority in terms of what is required. Requirement on the school website or meeting with the agent, a certified agent by the institutions are very, very important to pay attention to. So one of these is not paying attention to some of these requirements. So let me cite an example. In a situation where universities require that, okay, you have to have a 2-1, and they even specify by going into detail, putting a CGPA on their website, or you have an opportunity to meet with their agent and you heard this from the agent. And some of the students will just want to try their luck, irrespective of what is required. We just want to try their luck. So instead of trying your luck, try to be detailed and give only what is expected. SOP, I think I overheard one of the panelists, the virtual one, the other time when he mentioned that you need to talk about yourself. When you are asked to talk about SOP, I think it's all about yourself. Be original about it. Don't fabricate any information.
I think it goes, you're confirming what Professor Prof said the other time. Thank you so much, Professor Ladipo mentioned the same thing the other time about the students knowing what to write and how to write it. Please put your hands together for him. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to thank you very much for this particular session that we have had, navigating the admissions process. Insider tips from top universities, you've heard them all. If you didn't hear them all, get the recording. Okay, they're back now. I wanted to talk to Mr. Tarkan Ulas the other time. I don't know if he's also on the board right now. Can you hear me? Please confirm that you can.
Yes, I can now.
Wonderful. So I wanted to find out from you, the panelists here have talked about the admissions process. Let's hear from you. How do the policies around, what's it called now? The policies around immigration, how does it change? And how does it affect the admission process, the students in navigating the admission process?
Okay, I just listened to the couple parts because of the connection, but just let me add a couple of sentences to the other speakers. One of the things that while the students were writing the essays, as one step before, they should make sure that they are applying to the right program. The reason is unfortunately the statistically around 8 to 9% of the students drop out or unfortunately asking to change to their program after first year. This is one of the friendly advice them to make sure that they are applying to the right program. Also, that this is affecting their essays, the statement of purpose, if it's really fitting to that program or not. And after they make sure that this is the right program, and whenever they express their stuff, I think the administration, the team can feel it, and it will be a big advantage for them in addition to the academic advantage like their grades. And this is a really big important part that we shouldn't miss, to be honest, because this is one of the questions I've been facing, what I should study. And this is what always I was telling them. Just get in front of you, talk to yourself what you want to be in 10, 15 years. So that's something make you happy. Unfortunately, you need to make money as well, in addition to two sides.
Thank you so much. Well, let me ask you, Ms. Ivanova, talk to us about culture, perhaps just for 60 seconds. You know, many people think that education is all about academics, but I also believe...
Hello?
Can you hear me? Ms. Ivanova, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. So, talk to us about culture. Culture shock. Mr. Obe here was talking about culture shock for so many students. What are the things to be aware of or prepare your mind for when you are going into an environment, an international environment? I ask that because many people think that education is all about academics. I would say that even learning about culture is part of it, right? So talk to us about that. What are the things to look out for?
Yeah, well, so I mean, before that, I feel like the initial stage that students will actually be maybe shocked in, it might be in terms of the process, because specifically for the UK, there are a lot of deadlines to meet. The application process takes kind of a lot of time. So I would say from the initial start in terms of the admissions would be to prepare in advance, to have an idea what you want to do, what you want to study, to have an idea where you want to study in the UK and why you want to study at that institution. Then later on, after the admissions, then it comes to the visa application cultural shock, I would say, because I know that students are bombarded with a lot of information. They don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. So I would say that your initial and your first point of contact will be the university that you're going to apply for. Then there's a specific immigrations team that will be able to advise you. Then they'll be also able to advise you on some social groups that international students have within the university. A lot of universities in the UK have a lot of, as I said, in like country-specific groups. So they do like theme-related events. For example, if there is like a national celebration, so they always ensure that international students are welcome to the UK by engaging them in different activities. And especially in the UK, there's the first week, there's a freshers week where actually students come to the campus, and there are a lot of different activities that are specifically kind of scheduled. So that's very useful, so that students can get together, make new friends, meet people from their country as well, understand what social groups are there, what other activities are there.
Okay.
Also, another thing would be to actually have a look at the university facilities as well. There are a lot of opportunities that you can do. For example, there's a lot of sports activities that you could do, and there are a lot of like other social groups that you can take part of.
Okay.
So yeah,
so many other issues to look at, most certainly from what you're saying. We'll have to thank you very much. Our panelists, our time is so fast spent. I wish I could continue this particular one because everyone wants to, you just want to get there. I mean, just what you have talked about, all of you have spoken about, is the fact that people generally ignore the process and just want to get to the end of it. But you have to follow the process at the end of the day. We have to thank you very much for being here, all of you. Let me begin with you, Mr. Ibukobe. Thank you so much for your time. Professor Bayo Ladipupo, as well as Mr. Louis Adekola. Thank you, gentlemen. And for our virtual guests, thank you as well. Ms. Lidiya Ivanova, Mr. Matthew McDonald, and Mr. Tarkan Ulas. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Please give them a round of applause for me. Thank you so much. So this session is over. The next one is also coming up right after now. I believe you are taking pictures. Okay.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Makinde and the members of the panel. It's time for the photographs. Can we just stay and take the photographs now? Let's stay behind there so we can take the photographs. Okay, so while the photographs are going on, we will be looking at the next event. Please don't rush to go, don't rush to leave.